In October of 2007, a strange black dot appeared in aerial photos of Shinjuku, but the general consensus was that it wasn't worth paying attention to that, so it was ignored by military and researchers. Note:
Excuse me?
they probably should have paid attention to that.
Can you guys see the what the f on my face right now? There was black dot on the aerial photo of city. Let's just ignore it, sucker. Then what the f are you doing? What the f's your job? Hey, if you're fucking not paying attention to shit, then why are you watching shit? It's like me being a doctor that's supposed to be looking for abnormalities on people's skin, you know? There could be skin cancer. Oh, look at that. It looks like a black dot. Yeah, let me just forget about it. I stopped paying attention to it. It's like fucking being a radiocatographer, whatever the f, looking at people's brain scans. Oh, look, there's a black dot. It might be a tumor. Let me just ignore that. What?
The story in NieR Replicant is fantastic. I'm of the opinion that playing the game multiple times really makes you notice and appreciate the minutiae and detail of the scenes being presented. Nothing is really wasted, and everything has a point that it's trying to get across. The thing about the NieR story, though, is that it's kind of incomplete. But not incomplete in the way some other games that have obvious signs of cut corners and missing plot elements are. The OG NieR released in 2010, and pretty much ever since, side content has been gradually released, fleshing out more and more of the story surrounding the game. Have a question that wasn't answered during the game itself? Chances are you can probably find what you're looking for in the side content. Thing is, there's a lot. Like, a lot. So it can be a bit intimidating finding out where to start and how to put it all together. That's not even mentioning some of the Dark Souls level obscure hidden collectibles in the game that give almost essential world-building details you can easily miss. I'm looking at you, Project Gestalt reports in NieR Automata. That's not even to mention the whole series that technically came before it. So that all being said, I'm gonna be making a few videos in this series, plugging the gaps around NieR Replicant, what happens between that game and Automata, and etc. By the way, if you want to follow the series, I recommend giving that subscribe button a quick slap.
Why is NieR wearing a mask?
I figured, what better place to start than in the beginning, so in this video, I'll be going over mostly everything significant that happens in between Ending E of Drakengard and the beginning in NieR Replicant, with a specific focus on what doesn't appear in the game. I'm going to be omitting most information about Project Gestalt, since I think that deserves its own separate space entirely to do it justice, but I'll give it a mention when it's really essential. Full disclosure, given that most of this stuff happens in between the front and back cover of a pile of processed trees, I'll try my best to match what I'm saying to the video, but some of it's gonna have to end up being unrelated gameplay. Also, massive spoilers ahead, just in case you needed to hear that. With that all out of the way, let's start where NieR begins. 2003, in our world, Shinjuku.
Ah, f***ing dragon. Shit. Oh no, it's a giant baby.
Is this the land of the gods?
On June 12th, 2003, the events of Ending E of Drakengard play out. Kaim, Angelus, and the Queen Beast appear in Tokyo to have their final showdown. Kaim and Angelus come out on top, but are shortly after shot down by a JSDF fighter plane. In the aftermath, the Queen Beast dissolves into a white substance, said to be without mass or weight. This substance would turn out to be Maso, a magical element from the dimension Drakengard takes place in. This whole event would later be known as the 612 incident, and it mostly came and went without too many issues. There were about 50 casualties, a below average amount for a final boss fight and carpet bombing taking place in the middle of an urban center, but the problem seemed to have sorted itself out. That is, until December of that year, when a few incidents of a certain disease began popping up around Shinjuku. When an individual is infected with white chlorination syndrome, from now on WCS...
Can I just say I like this guy's personality? Like, I like the cut of his jib.
because I ain't saying that every time. They're presented with a choice. Make a pact with God, lose their humanity, and become a member of the Legion, or turn into a pile of salt. Bit of a raw deal. Initially, it would appear that most people chose option 2, since individuals with the disease were observed turning into salt 100% of the time in these early stages. Despite fatality basically being guaranteed, not much attention was paid to this issue, since case rates were incredibly low until February 2004, when the pace started ramping up exponentially. In April 2004, the first cases of people making a pact with a god from the Drakengard universe were observed, as some patients began to go berserk while undergoing treatment. Over the following months, martial law was declared in Shinjuku, and plans were made to seal off the city, a plan that was executed in October of that year. This is sounding pretty zombie apocalypse fiction-ish, but hey, it worked. Over the next 3 years or so, the numbers of WCS were going down, the JSDF were tackling the issues of berserk patients within the walls, and the scientists were working on discovering more about the disease. Things were looking up. In October of 2007, a strange black dot appeared in aerial photos of Shinjuku, but the general consensus was that it wasn't worth paying attention to that, so it was ignored by military and researchers. Note:
Excuse me?
they probably should have paid attention to that.
Can you guys see the what the f on my face right now? There was black dot on the aerial photo of city. Let's just ignore it, suka. Then what the f are you doing? What the f***'s your job? If you're f***ing not paying attention to shit, then why are you watching shit? It's like me being a doctor that's supposed to be looking for abnormalities on people's skin, you know? There could be skin cancer. Oh, look at that. It looks like a black dot. Yeah, let me just forget about it. I stop paying attention to it. It's like being a radio catographer, whatever the f, looking at people's brain scans. Oh look, there's a black dot. It might be a tumor. Let me just ignore that. What?
The walls that surrounded Shinjuku came crashing down in early 2008, with a similar sound to what was heard during Kaim's fight with the Queen Beast. After such a long exposure time, the people infected with WCS who had previously chosen to make a pact with a god had turned into white monsters, led by a mysterious figure called Red Eye. The Legion were basically mindless, with Red Eye being an intelligent being directing their movements. A war immediately broke out between the JSDF and the Legion, facilitating the spread of WCS across the main island of Japan, Honshu. With this increase in cases comes an increase in the Legion, and their numbers grew stronger by the day, forcing Japan's military and people to retreat to the island of Kyushu to the south.
I mean, did they never consider a tactical nuclear response? I know it's a bit of a sore subject, particularly in Japan, but when you've got an unknown force attacking you and turning people into zombies, occasionally you have to consider a tactical nuclear response.
At this point I gotta chime in and say Honshu and Kyushu are separated by like half a kilometer of water and are connected by multiple bridges and roads.
Collapse the bridges!
So, I don't know how this small geographical feature kept the Legion and WCS at bay, but whatever. The battle is going...
Clearly they didn't know how to swim.
How do I put this scientifically?
And not if there were civilians around. How do I put it this way? Highly infectious virus that turns people either into enemy combatants or salt. They're already dead.
Extremely f***ing poorly. So Japan makes an alliance with the US to try and turn the tides. Even still, nothing seems to be working, and the Legion endlessly replenishes their numbers whenever they make any headway.
Nuclear response.
So they decide to go with the good old nuclear option.
Thank you!
Idea supported overseas, but with obviously mixed reception in Japan. It goes
Well, you know, gotta break a few eggs.
through, and in August of 2009, large portions of Japan are bombed with nuclear weapons. Despite the loss of property and life, it actually works. By November, all...
See? This is why I need to be put in charge of shit like this. COVID outbreak, tactical nuclear response. Milk shortage, tactical nuclear response.
traces of the Legion seem to have been dealt with. The price was high. Too high, maybe. But the war with the Legion had been won.
Godzilla, tactical nuclear response. What?
Starting in February, WCS cases started popping up in countries around the globe,
What?
which caused it to accelerate at an unheard of level. Despite Japan's struggle with the Legion and WCS in the half-decade prior to this, it was only this event that made the international community realize, maybe this might be our problem. Research into the body of Angelus, Maso, WCS, and its origins began on a global scale, way too little, way too late, but they managed to get a decent grasp on it by June. It turns out, WCS is spread through the air by coughing and saliva, and hang on, I gotta grip my chest for a sec, because this paragraph is hitting way too close to home. Okay. So, since Maso originates from another dimension, it can't be destroyed. Turns out, on a scale from 1 to 10, dropping bombs on Honshu was a conservative 13 to 14 as far as bad ideas go, since it propelled Maso around the world. That's not to say it's all bad though, scientists figured out how to use, air quotes, magic by harnessing Maso's energy, so, I mean, at least we have that.
And this is why I should stick to YouTube.
In October of 2011, the lab that was studying Angelus's body was broken into, and someone stole the dragon. Thing is, no one knows who did it.
Wait, someone stole the dragon?
I wonder if that'll be important. The situation would continue to grow worse and worse.
Wait, someone stole a fucking dragon? What, are we gonna ignore that too? Let's ignore it like the black fucking dot on the aerial photos.
For the next 4 or so years, until February 2016, when a compound that sounds like it's named after a B-tier UK energy drink, luciferase, is discovered to significantly slow down the effects of WCS.
I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna put anything in my body that has the word Lucifer in it.
As ridiculous as the name sounds, this stuff actually exists. It's an enzyme that produces bioluminescence.
Luciferize, bioluminescence, Lucifer meaning light bring. This is clever.
Jury's still up on its real-world effectiveness against WCS, though. Using luciferase, a combat group called the First Crusade is created to fight the Legion.
Luciferase creates a crusade. Wow, you can't make this shit up. Like, wow.
And hey, it worked, until it didn't, and the entire unit was wiped out. This was the trump card, and it ended up as a failure. Options were running pretty slim. See, but thing is, turns out children get a much larger benefit from luciferase, and they would be better suited to fight the Legion. But recruiting children as soldiers and having them fight while hopped up in massive amounts of an experimental performance enhancer? That sounds morally wrong.
And socially frowned upon. Hitler did it!
Although...
Unless... You know what? I like this guy. He's getting a sub. I like the cut of your jib. And the sense of your humor. Take my sub.
So the Hamlin organization is formed to recruit and train an elite squad of teenagers, then pump them full of luciferase to fight the Legion. Hey, I've heard that name before. I wonder if they're gonna be involved in some shady shit in about 1 minute from now. There's some unease around the world over the sudden rise in power of the Hamlin organization, particularly in Japan, especially since they've started researching into using Maso to create super soldiers. They are humanity's best and only hope in winning the war, however, so they continue to fight the Legion without interference over the next few years. All the while, Project Gestalt is quietly continuing in the background. Like I said though, we'll talk about that next time. Around 2026, the Hamlin organization decided to go through with the whole do unethical shit for max profit thing. You probably know what happens here. Emil and his sister Halua are experimented on with Maso to create living weapons that can defeat the Legion. Answer? That sounds morally wrong over the next few years. All the while, Project Gestalt is quietly continuing in the background. Like I said though, we'll talk about that next time. Around 2026, the Hamlin organization decided to go through with the whole do unethical shit for max profit thing. You probably know what happens here. Emil and his sister Halua are experimented on with Maso to create living weapons that can defeat the Legion. They grew up in a facility that labeled itself as an orphanage, but kids were disappearing on a regular basis. Emil might not have been, but Halua was old enough to know something was off here. Their main caregiver was a woman they referred to as their sensei, and she seemed to genuinely care about the pair's well-being. One day, Halua was told she had a disease and needed to undergo surgery immediately. Halua was transformed into the skeleton boss, and she was pretty lucid in the beginning. Before they put her under, a researcher mentioned that even if the experiments on her were to fail, they could use her brother as a replacement. Hearing this put her into a panic that they would do the same thing to Emil they did to her, so she tried to break the two of them out. On the way, she ran into her sensei, had some conflicting thoughts, and then one-shot her into the wall. Unfortunately, in the chaos, the Hamlin organization decided to speed up their experiments on Emil and give him his trademark eyes, forcing him to turn Halua into stone so they could seal her up in the basement for the next 1,000 years. Suffice to say, they lost their human experimentation funding for the next fiscal season. 4 more years of war would pass, until finally, some headway was made. Red-Eye was slain by the 13th Crusader Unit's CO. Are you keeping counting? That's the 13th. They lost 13 of these things before they finally got him. Despite the CO dying of his injuries afterwards, the Legion was left without a leader, becoming an uncoordinated, mindless horde that slowly weakened over time. This is the main reason why we don't
Why is he just like standing there blocking? Charge in there, you coward!
see any Legion activity in the beginning of the game. Got that problem solved, but WCS on the other hand shows no signs of slowing down, so Project Gestalt, in tandem with the Replicant system, begins en masse in March of 2032. Needless to say, this also begins to fail pretty badly, which leads to the events of the intro of NieR, where he makes a pact with Grimoire Noir to gain power. In the chaos, Yona touches the book and begins to relapse, and NieR is forced to play ball, becoming the original Gestalt. The Shadow Lord, in exchange for the World Purification System, the company behind the project, agreeing to put Yona's relapsing Gestalt on ice until the bodies and souls can be reunited. You might be sensing a common trend here, but things went relatively smoothly until they, didn't. Once all the Maso had been removed from the world and the remaining Legion forces destroyed, Project Gestalt could be completed, and humanity could return to their bodies. For the first few centuries, the mindless replicants took orders from the androids left behind to watch over them, taking out the remnants of the Legion's forces and scrubbing the world of the remaining Maso. If this had taken, say, about half the time that it ended up actually taking, Project Gestalt might have gone off without a hitch, and we wouldn't have a game to play here. Well, about 600 years after the intro of NieR Replicant, and about 600 years before the beginning of the game proper, some replicant decided there must be more to life, and gained sentience. At this point, I'm pretty sure the Observer androids collectively shat a brick. This whole sentience thing was a slow process at first, but about 1,000 years after the events of the intro, in the year 3000, pretty much every replicant have developed big brain. They began to form their own primitive societies with a unique culture. An important point to note here is that most replicants developed personalities almost wholly unrelated to their original Gestalts, becoming a separate entity whose existence was no less valid than what they were before. Despite now having free will, the replicants would continue to cooperate with the androids, continuing to purify the world. In the year 3276, one replicant enters a land that's said to grant one's deepest desire, so he sets off to revive his dead lover. When he wishes for a resurrection, a series of events plays out that almost exactly mirrors when NUART tried to revive Furiae at the end of Drakengard. Everything looks like it's going fine until she opens her eyes and one-hit KOs him. I should also mention that this magical wish-granting place is the same one where Red-Eye fell over 1,000 years prior, the city of Jerusalem. Whether the wish-granting properties of this area were something the replicants truly believed in, or whether they were honey-trapped into approaching by Red-Eye's ghost or something, is up for you to decide. Either way, the newly resurrected replicant takes the form of a new Red-Eye, and immediately declares Legion World War II, amassing the remaining forces and attacking the replicants. This war would last about a full decade until an android and 4 replicant heroes defeated the new Red-Eye, who, having amassed all the Legion soldiers in the same place, made them quick to wipe out as well. Why the original war lasted almost 3 decades with the combined forces of the modern armies of every country in the world, and this one was beat back by a single Final Fantasy party is anyone's guess, but whatever. Oh, wait, did you hear that ding? The Legion has been completely eliminated, and the world has been purified of Maso, so it's time for Project Gestalt to come out of the oven. This isn't going well. No, this isn't going well at all. The replicants have become their own people, and they see these black demons running around more as body snatchers than the actual humans. With no place to return to, these Gestalts start to relapse and go berserk one by one. Okay, so I don't...
So we killed not only the Shade men, but the Shade women and the Shade children. Deviler and Popular might have been a little worried there.
I don't want to get blown out by making a blanket statement that turns out to be wrong, but one
did restore
misconception I
balance.
see a lot of is that the shades you fight in the game are relapsed. To my knowledge, for the majority of cases, this isn't true. The shades we see in-game, for the most part, retain their consciousness and free will. Some don't attack you unless in self-defense. A lot of perceived attacks are just them trying to return to their bodies, and we can clearly see many examples of them having justified motivations for their actions. That, and when the shade relapses, the replicant gets the black scroll, something we see only three, the lighthouse lady as well, cases of in the game. Lastly, before we end things off, there's a short story that gives us a brief glimpse of NieR's life, slightly before the events of the game. A lot of content from this short story is referenced in the loading screens. Yona getting a pet chick, a story about a big tree, you know the deal. It's around this time Yona gets diagnosed with the Black Scrawl. While the disease is ultimately untreatable, NieR was pretty desperate for money to buy medicine to at least ease Yona's pain. But there's one problem. It might not look like it in-game, but NieR's village is kinda poor. Most people didn't have any work to give him, no matter how much they wanted to, and at best, they could offer him some pity job for some meager pay. This is reflected in-game. A lot of the side quests in Part 1 from the village have NieR doing some menial fetch quests, something most people could do themselves, but they let NieR do it to throw him a bone. NieR goes to some seriously desperate lengths to earn some money, which actually ends up being the reason why he ties his hair up for the first half of the game. Popola and Devla give NieR slightly more dangerous jobs like hunting shades, despite the risk, to prevent him from having to do stuff like that again.
So Devla and Popola literally throw him to kill some shades. And NieR has been slaughtering children. Damn, he's gone full dark side. No wonder he gets Weiss and black-red balls. Very dark side.
I recommend reading the short story, The Red and the Black, if you want to know a bit about what I mean. And that's it. The next thing that happens is the game starting, so we're done for today. Next time, we'll focus on Project Gestalt, why it failed, and what could have been done. Hope to see you for that one.
I can't not watch it. Gimme. We have to. Red and Black is very depressing. Oh god!
Weiss, you dumbass! Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry! Maybe I'll rip your pages out one by one, or maybe I'll put you in the goddamn furnace! How can someone with such a big smart brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord! Come over here and give Weiss a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord! Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us!